Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes in the Hole and Sock Stop Thing. I'm Pete.
What the hell just happened there? I am Ryan. You are in the hole with the Major League A-Holes. This is also a Sox type thing, episode 29, in the hole number 127.
127.
It's
Holy shit.
been, yeah, I mean, it should be 128, but we took last week off for various
Traveling
reasons. So
for
it's been,
work.
yeah, it's been a bit. It's been almost 2 weeks since we bet last game to you, in which time the Tigers have won one game, and that was last night. Uh, we also had, I think we have to call this rivalry weeks since the
Yes.
Tigers and White Sox played 2 weekends ago, and then the Giants and Cubs just played last weekend. So we've got that. We've got all sorts of news for everyone, including the Oakland A's, which is going to be fun to talk about. They're having their reverse boycott night at the Coliseum as we speak. That's going on tonight. So we'll see how that turns out. I've got lots of thoughts on that, but we got a lot of ground to cover. So we might as well go ahead and jump into the news.
Well, we get to start off tonight with the Giants, our one team above 500 in the A-hole standings at 32 and 30.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say one game? I'm sorry, two games above five. The one
Yeah, no, I
team
think you said it
above
right.
500.
Yeah. One
Yeah.
of our teams. Yes, I see what you just said. Yeah, I think you've got Giants are kind of pulling away in the A-hole standings. You've got a 5.5 game lead over both the Cubs and the Sox, and a 6 game lead over the Tigers.
The Sox thundering up from fourth place, though. So
that's right. Yeah, I think I have you percentage points. You are ahead of the Cubs, even though you're both tied for second in the A-hole standings. So
maybe could be the only standings that are worth anything this year.
I post those on in our Instagram story at Major League A-Holes, and that I update that every day. So there's actually quite a few people that check that out every day. So people want to know how the A-hole standings are going.
Of course they do. Who doesn't? I look every day. I'm like, what's going on? But there's been some stuff going on with the Giants. I think the best thing to lead in with is we had a question a few weeks ago when we were on about, did we miss the splash hit, the 100th splash hit? And
I was confused about it.
We thought we did because some guy I can't remember the name of from the Pirates hit 2 home runs into McCovey Cove, and we were like, well, they must have blown past the 100th splash, and we missed it. But it's kind of interesting. There's a unique math by the Giants, and the math is only the Giants' home runs into McCovey Cove count towards the splash hit.
Splash hit. Wow. That was news to me. I think it was just a couple days after we got confused on this last podcast that splash hit number 100 actually happened.
Yes, Lamonte Wade Jr. gets credited with the 100th splash hit, which
Smitty late night Lamont Wade Jr. He's got the coolest. I think that's one of the coolest nicknames. Late night. It's almost as good as who was that? 3 a.m. for the Cubs. Oh my God, I already forgot. I think he was on
Rob
the Giants.
Thomas.
No, definitely not. But anyway.
So we were shaking our heads, and Smitty sent me a tweet. It was just like, I'm a little confused here. Like, what happened? And I'm like, oh, so am I. So I did do, some hardcore deep throat, as we like to.
Hardball deep throat, the investigative journalism.
Oh, it's not hardcore deep throat. That's something else.
I don't know what you do in your own time, but that has nothing to do with the podcast. So
hardball deep throat, and yeah, I found out it only counts when the Giants. So anyone else who gets a home run into McCovey Cove, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, strike it from the record.
It did not occur.
So congrats to late night Lamont Wade Jr. for splash hit number 100. By the way, did you see the kayaker that caught the ball?
I did not.
In McCovey Cove. There's all sorts of footage of him. He looks like the man who has completed his life's work when he finally catches that ball. He's not even celebrating like crazy, probably because you can't in a kayak. You might capsize, I guess, but he's like hugging the ball, like lean back, eyes closed, in the most satisfied look. Like this was what his like culminating moment of his life is getting splash hit number 100. So,
But what? Yeah, I mean, if you're thinking about it, though, that ball's worth shit.
I don't think it's about what the street market value of the ball is. I think it's to like how much work, who knows how many hours he spent in a kayak in McCovey Cove trying to catch even one ball. Who knows? Maybe he's caught several and just always wanted to have number 100. Didn't look like he had a ton of competition out there. The way you've seen certainly during the Barry Bonds years, where it was just boat to boat, bumper to bumper, whatever you call it, stern to starboard. But yeah, I couldn't believe it just looked like the most satisfied man in the planet at that moment. He now
Yeah,
splash hit number 100 in his possession.
interesting.
Hmm, maybe
Splash hit
not.
100 for the Giants.
Yes.
Hey, that leads me to a question. Switching
Okay.
gears for a second,
Yes,
throwing a
please.
curveball here. Does anyone stand outside of, like you said, Barry Bonds era? That cove was filled with boats. Remember how, like, during the home run chase and even years later, outside of Wrigley, people used to line up in the street
Ball
to
Hawks,
catch?
yeah.
Yeah. Do they do that anymore?
Oh yeah,
Does that?
they're all still out there.
Huh.
I
Okay.
was actually in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and the guys, I walked down Waveland, and there's that. Damn it, I'm terrible at street names. There's the one street next to not next to the
Firehouse.
firehouse, the other side,
Yeah.
not the street you used to live on, but the other
Yeah.
way. That's
Right.
where the ball hawks always hang out there because
Yeah.
you can actually hit the ball down there. And they're a couple old guys still standing out there with their
Well, that's
gloves for
cool.
sure.
That's cool. I'm glad that tradition's still going on.
Got nothing else to do in that neighborhood other than
Yeah.
have the ball game going.
Probably
Hopefully,
everyone's
watch a couple
independent.
wins.
Yeah, everyone's independently wealthy over there or something. Never understood that. Um,
85% of the planet's working. The other 15's out here.
yeah. But the Giants are in an interesting position, and they are currently the last wild card team in the NL. They are 2 games above 500, as we mentioned. They are only 7 games out of first place in what seems like they of Arizona or the Dodgers could all win because everyone plays pretty inconsistently.
Well, and that's what's remarkable. The first place Arizona Diamondbacks are in first place. They actually were just here in Detroit, and they're a very interesting team that I haven't paid any attention to. Their rookie phenom Corbin, I already forgot his name, but that dude's legit. Legit power, speed, everything. 5 tools for a rookie. He's definitely running away with the rookie of the year.
Corbin Carroll. He's already been
Corbin
crowned.
Carroll, yes. Yeah, that was actually going to be Bob's bad tweet. Our friend Bob Nightingale, who loves to make malaprops all over social media. You sent it to me. Do you have that pulled up on your phone, actually?
I can actually get it right here. Bob tweeted, Arizona D-backs rookie Corbin Carroll wins his first Rookie of the Year award with fellow rookie Gunnar Henderson of the Baltimore Orioles. Next stop, the All-Star game in his hometown of Seattle.
I think he meant player of the week, not rookie of the year, as just another huge mistake, not of consequence. But we might talk about Bob Nightingale and his reporting or lack thereof a little bit later in the show. But yeah, that was an opportune time to bring up Bob's bad tweet.
I also
He doesn't
wonder
delete those either. He just keeps them out.
no.
I mean, everyone calls him out on them. I accused him of having a sports almanac, a la Back to the Future, where he could see who actually wins this year's Rookie of the Year before everybody else.
Yeah. I also think he searched hung over Corbin Carroll photo or something because the photo attached to the tweet is horrific. He looks like he's barely awake and didn't even know anyone was snapping a picture of him. But that's Bob. He's a class act.
He is.
A real class act. So the Giants, like I was saying, 7 games out first, 17-12 in May, 6-4 so far in June. if they keep playing like this and they're holding on to that wild card spot, do they add at the trade deadline?
This is going to be the eternal question for most of the league, most of both leagues, considering how no one's really running away with anything. There's so many teams hovering around 500, especially in the central divisions of both the American League and National League. Well, this will be a conversation we're going to have for all of our teams. But
like, like part of me thinks it's like fool's gold, but
we've brought that up before, the fool's gold analogy with especially your White Sox. You know, if somehow you did come away thinking that it would be moving closer to first place in such a terrible division by the trade deadline, you go for it at that point, even knowing that somehow you might be able to win such a terrible division.
Yeah.
Does it really matter when you get to the playoffs?
Right.
And I think the Giants are in a little bit different spot just because your NL West is not nearly as so pathetic as either the Central Division. So if you were able to creep your way up closer, I mean, you just said you're in the wild card hunt already by just being barely over 500.
Yeah, and
arguments can be made.
That's the question too. I feel like in the AL, it's more fool's gold than the NL, meaning no one with a record barely over 500 in the AL is anywhere near the wild card because of how good the East is and the West right now, even.
Yeah.
And it just begs the question, maybe they could actually, maybe it's not fool's gold. Maybe the caliber of talent in the NL isn't as good as it's been in years past, and they could actually make a decent run if if everything fell into place. But I don't know. I feel like we had like that crazy, almost record-setting win season 2 years ago. We fell back down to earth last year as expected. And now this year, it's kind of clicking, but it feels a little bit like, not to the same degree of 2 years ago, but it's like that.
Not even close to 2
years
ago.
But in that way of like, wow, they won 117 games, but then they did shit when they got to the playoffs, right? So
yeah,
it's like, it's the same thing. I mean, doing the same thing, and are they better off just maybe? I think it could even be one of those cases where you trade something, a veteran player away that you're not interested in keeping around anyway, with the young talent coming through the organization, and you almost make a trade that doesn't really even damage things all that much, but you end up adding, you know what I mean? So they're kind of in that situation where someone could be interested in a Brandon Crawford, or something along those lines. So I don't know, but
he's going to be a middle reliever at this point, as he made his debut on the mound this weekend against the Cubs. So yeah, he's building his value right there, his trade value right there. I think he threw a scoreless inning.
Right, and as usual, we just have amazing transitions, because that's what I wanted to bring up next is the Giants-Cubs series where...
Oh, I'm surprised you want to bring that up.
Well, I mean, the Giants outscored the Cubs 15-10. So that's a +5 run differential.
Oh, now you love the run differential.
Which would mean the Giants won the series, right? Because run differential tells you how good of the things went, right? So
not
the
at
Giants
all.
had a +5 run differential in the series.
For someone that references run differential more than anyone I know, you have no understanding of what run differential is used for. It's for the end of the season. It's to how it's over a massive sample size, not a small sample size of certainly not one series. So you've brought run differential up, I think, almost every episode this year. And I know you hate it. You're mocking it, but yeah.
Yes.
No one's arguing that run differential means shit until the end of the year. So can we let this one go?
Sometimes means shit at the end of the year too.
Well, okay, but it means certainly a hell of a lot more than it would in a 3-game series. But congratulations on your run differential win this weekend. So,
but we lost the series.
Unfortunately, it doesn't count in the standings. So.
It does not. We lost the series. we lost the series, even though we outscored the Cubs 15-10.
Okay.
It was a well pitched series by the Cubs. Actually, the Giants didn't really even pitch all that bad. The two games they lost to the Cubs were 3-2 and 4-zip. But the Cubs were kind of limping into town, so it's kind of disappointing that we couldn't take a home series for the Cubs. But
yeah, there was no thought in my mind that the Cubs were going to win that series going into that. So that was unexpected. And I didn't think you guys are necessarily world beaters, but I thought you've shown that you've played more quality baseball than the Cubs have, especially at home. I didn't think the Cubs would show up that much, but I mean, really, the story of the series was Kyle Hendricks and his no-hit bid through 7 2/3 that was finally broken up on a double. Do you remember who hit your double?
Mitch Haniger, right?
That's right. Good call. The a little bit of controversy there. I've heard people say that Ian Happ should have dove for it. When you're in a 4-0 game in the 8th inning, trying to hold on to a no hitter, why not dive for it? And even if you miss it and bounce off the wall, who cares? It's just a run scored there.
I kind of I see that. I mean, I would hesitate to call Ian Happ out because he's always seems to play hard. So
he actually called himself out after.
Oh, did he then?
Yeah, he said he probably should have dove for it. I don't know if he was saying that in jest or whatever, but I think he probably would have broken his neck if he dove for that, because he would have dove into the wall essentially as it hit off the top of the wall. So I don't think that was probably well advised to, but I guess you want to see the effort, much like Mike Tauchman earlier in the game had an incredible catch in left field, diving catch on the warning track. That would have been actually, play of the game. You always hear somebody gets a no hitter, you got to have an incredible play behind you. That would have been it. But if Happ had somehow pulled that off, that would definitely have been the play of the game. Hendricks, of course, he blamed himself. Like he shouldn't. It looked like a double to him, is what he said. So,
right.
I mean, you hit it off the wall. That's well struck. By the way, we've always heard of Kyle Hendricks as being referred to as the Professor. He's got a new nickname now after that performance, the Master Surgeon. I don't know if how would you rate those nicknames? The Professor versus the Master Surgeon.
I like Professor. I mean,
Greg
Maddux was called the Professor too.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like because of both of their pitching styles, it was so much more about the mental side of the game and knowing your opponent so well to pitch to their weaknesses, because you didn't have like a 98-mile-an-hour fastball to blow by them. It was all on how smart you were and how smart you pitched. So
the Master Surgeon / Professor was blowing you guys away with 88 mile an hour.
Yeah, right.
So
I mean, it's amazing.
It's crazy what he's doing. He actually had a pretty good start before that. So he's a much welcome addition to the Cubs rotation, as they've been struggling of late in general. But yeah, that was a fun one. I thought it just kind of felt, especially after the Tauchman catch, I thought they were going to get the no hitter. I don't know if you were watching the game. I know you've had a busy week, busy couple of weeks. So were you watching at the time?
No, the only game I saw, thankfully, was the blowout on Sundays. So.
Okay. Yeah. The Cubs are kind of famous for winning. If they do happen to win the first 2 games of a series, they have never been able to get the sweep this season for questionable reasons. It could just be happenstance or people questioning David Ross's lineups after they've already secured the first 2 games of a series.
God, yes, the Sunday lineup or the getaway day lineup.
Yep,
I mean,
the lineup has come out of the woodwork.
Just about every fucking manager does it though. Yeah, especially not so much if the third game of the series is a night game, you don't see it. But if it's a day game, if there have been 2 night games in a day game, there's a lot of managers do it. I mean, it's not a strange occurrence.
It's a long view. I think that idea, they're preserving their roster for the long haul, where fans tend to look at baseball games like football games. You go all out for every single one of them, or you can't necessarily do that in every way you'd like possible. I like to refrain from being a lineupista just because of that. There's also information that we'll never know, if somebody's not in the lineup today, because they need a day off. They went to the manager and said something. They could be dealing with something. Who knows? So it's hard. It's easy to play the lineupista, as Joe Madden like to call it, but it's certainly second guess manager's decision when they don't win. But
yeah, totally.
It's kind of foolish, but I like to play a lineupista anytime David Ross puts Master Boney in.
Oh my God. Yeah. I was going to say, you have played lineupista.
Oh, I will.
Lately.
I will every time Master Boney's in the lineup, which he just got called up today and is in the lineup. Luckily, he's batting number 7 tonight. If the Cubs
is he your Lurie Garcia?
He might be. He's only been around for a little bit, but he should not be in a major league lineup, let alone he was leading off as the one where I went nuts on Twitter. Like, this is ridiculous, but there's reasons I'm sure that I don't understand. We'll never understand information that I'm not privy to. So, yeah, but it's fun. But yeah, I'll do my best to refrain from being a lineupista. But that Master Boney in the lineup sends me over the edge every time. You look at his stats; he just should not be in the major leagues.
I also think there's different levels of it, and I always felt like Tony last year for the Sox, when someone wasn't in the lineup and if the game was close at the end and some schlub that replaced them was coming up to bat and you could take someone off the bench and insert them for a hit to try to win the game, he wouldn't do it. But I've seen David Ross do it before where he goes to the guy who rested for 8 innings or 7 innings and he brings him in off the bench, and Pedro Grifal's done the same thing this year. So I think it's varying levels. It's one thing if the game's in reach and you've got your a couple stars on the bench, then use them. That's not gonna, their body's been preserved, So
I agree with that. But I mean, again, we don't know. If a full day off where he can take the mental break where he knows he's not coming off the bench, if that makes a difference, I'm sure it does. There's mitigating circumstances, but there's also mitigating circumstances when you bring up Tony La Russa. We were worried that he was asleep and didn't even know.
Well, that's true. He may have been asleep, unable to insert like Tim Anderson in the lineup on an off day or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well. I don't know if I kind of stepped all over your Giant segment.
No, I was transitioning. I thought it was a perfect transition.
We did transition nicely. The only other news with the Cubs I want to talk about this week is Marcus Stroman, who is clearly the ace of the Cubs rotation. He's got 3.3 WAR right now, which is best in the National League. He is pitcher of the year so far. And it shouldn't be too surprising that he is suddenly now taking to social media and traditional media to negotiate his new contract, publicly negotiate, try to get the fans on his side, get him a new deal as he's in the second of his 3-year deal with the Cubs. There's an option for him to leave for free agency after this season, but he says he wants to stay in Chicago, and he and his agent have gone to the Cubs, to which he's received crickets. They are, I don't know if he said they were ghosting him, but basically they have not engaged in any kind of extension talks. Of course, this makes perfect sense for Stroman. Why wouldn't he want to stay in Chicago? He's being paid $22 million a year right now. He would most likely at this point be asking for a $30 million a year deal, and he would have reason to back that up. As I just said, he's the best pitcher in the National League right now. Why not leverage that momentum? You and I, we made him our badass of the week a couple weeks. You stopped me from making him a badass of the week 2 times. For the 2-time winner.
And lucky I did, because once we start talking about the Tigers, that was probably the only time you were going to have that moment. So
I think history is going to look back upon us giving Zach Short our badass of the week over Marcus Stroman. It's not going to look upon us kindly. It just looks more and more absurd, but hopefully historians will understand as they
will
unearth our podcast. But yeah, I mean, I guess, so everyone's kind of taking sides. What I certainly understand why Stroman would start to do this. He's kind of been screwed over, or at least he's felt like he's been screwed over by other organizations that he's been with. That his exodus with the Mets was not the greatest, which fingers have been pointed in different directions for that. Some believe that Stroman kind of creates his own drama and issues.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see he's a 32-year-old pitcher trying to get his biggest deal ever. He's already on a pretty damn large deal with the Cubs. But he thinks, and I think a lot of will agree, that he should be paid for his performance this year. On the other side of it is Jed Hoyer and the Cubs, and I can actually understand their position, why they wouldn't really want to engage at this point. They've, for better or worse, the reality is they built their roster to either contend or have a bunch of sign and dumps. Cody Bellinger, that is not working out as he's been injured, but you signed him to a 1-year deal. If he played great, but the team wasn't competitive, they could trade him at the trade deadline. Unfortunately, with that injury, that's getting a little bit murky. Although he is, I believe, starting on a rehab assignment tonight, so we might be seeing Cody Bellinger back soon. But Stroman is another ideal candidate for the Cubs to potentially trade, especially the Cubs drop out of it, as they are not looking like contenders right now. You have the best pitcher in the National League that could be on the trading market, in a market that is going to be not very, it's going to be pretty thin. It is definitely a seller's market. So the Cubs are in a position where trading Stroman might be one of the strongest deals they could make in the last 5 years. The reason I have huge problems that the Cubs are even in this position or made those kind of deals to kind of be able to hedge their bets this year pisses me off, but this is the situation we're in. So I don't really blame Hoyer for holding his cards close to his vest and not engaging. He certainly doesn't need to engage via the media, but I guess his position is to wait. I mean, and we've talked about this, and we'll get to this with Rick Hahn too, but they just need to wait and be able to make a decision closer to the trade deadline, whether they want to hold on to him or not. Stroman also, as I mentioned, he's 32 years old. He's had tremendous seasons and he's had not so tremendous seasons. He had a pretty horrific start to his Cub career, turned it around late last season. But again, he's been incredible this year. But you trust a 32-year-old pitcher who has been kind of up and down do you trust him to give him a longer term deal for a lot more money? I think that also behooves the Cubs to wait as long as possible to engage in extension talks. So I'm as with most things, I play both sides of it, but I can see both sides of it in this argument. I think it's a little bit immature of Stroman to do this via the media. I guess I understand it just because he can use all the leverage he has right now. But he kind of, the way he framed it all was that he was controlling the narrative. And he also kind of put words in Jed Hoyer's mouth that, the Cubs were going to say that, he's asking for outrageous amounts of money, or, he's asking for too many years. And he reiterated that he hasn't asked for anything yet. He just wants to talk. But, that's a little disingenuous because the Cubs haven't said anything like that. So he's putting words in their mouth, which is kind of the only thing I could see, leading to acrimony or the Cubs having a problem with,
right,
or anyone having a problem with. So I guess I get it. It's a little interesting. You got to look at Stroman's history, his age, and his motivations for doing this, I guess, to get the full picture of what's going on.
I mean, you said he's under contract next year too, right?
He is.
It's
an option year, so it's a player option, so he would opt out most likely. So especially if his season continues, but he wants to get that deal right now, and he's never going to have more leverage than he has at this moment. So that's probably what's motivating this course of action. So,
and neither will the Cubs in his trade value. And
yeah,
I just with the direction of their trend line right now, I think the only thing you do is trade him at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see the Cubs. Of course, I didn't see the Cubs beating your Giants this weekend, but I don't see them making a miraculous run, even in the shitty NL Central. It's actually being led by the Pittsburgh Pirates right now, as Milwaukee dropped out of first. The Pirates are in town in Chicago right now. Although, are you still getting rain there? I think that
Oh,
the
it
game's still
picked
in a
up
rain
again.
delay.
It's really loud.
Yeah, we're probably not
It's
gonna have a Cubs
horrible.
game tonight, but
Yeah.
I mean, this series could be pretty fucking pivotal with the with the Pirates in town. If they start to make a move, that could shape things. But again, we're in the same going to be having the same conversation you and I have been having about Rick Hahn and the White Sox. You know, what is this? Is this for real? Is it really worth going all in on a season like this, on a team like this, just because you're still technically in the hunt in such a shitty division? I think all those questions, it sucks, and it's boring podcasting, but we have to wait. We just have to wait till you get closer to the trade deadline to make those decisions. You can't make those. We can't make those tonight. Even though I've been making fun, and you have, of Rick Hahn specifically on the South Side putting off decisions. He was questioned on Memorial Day. He said he would put off those kind of conversations again until July 4th.
Yeah.
Which means he only talks about this shit on holidays.
Right. That's what I was really making fun of. The fact, not saying like, well, we'll have to talk about it closer towards the trade deadline, which would be like a normal answer, but it's like, well, we'll readdress this on the 4th of July.
I think he should have talked about it on Flag Day, which is tomorrow, June 14th. So I think maybe we should press Rick Hahn for some news on that holiday.
He will, however, have an update on Liam Hendriks' condition tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's probably some of the biggest news coming. I'm assuming, yes. Coming out of the South Side right now. Hendriks, after a miraculous comeback and getting a save and a win and looking pretty good.
He got a win over my Tigers on National Cancer Survivors Day.
Yes, you can't ask for a better story.
I mean, that's unbelievable. Yeah.
But kind of not surprising, has some elbow inflammation, because it seemed like he kind of, as he is aggressive in his comeback. Rick Hahn did speculate a little. A comment was made that this seems very similar to the injury he had a few years ago that only kept him out about 3 weeks.
It was last year. Yeah. He was
the muscle. Yeah. Last year. Yeah. The muscle of the flexor strain or whatever.
He said symptomatically is the term that Rick Hahn used, symptomatically close to what he had last year. So this is described a little bit differently because they've been calling it elbow inflammation, but all that, forearm, elbow, all that ends up.
It all works together.
Being in the same category, yeah.
But so there will be news on Flag Day, Smitty. That's what I wanted.
Okay, there we go.
There will be some sort of news on Flag Day. Also, speaking of injuries, good old Eloy running out of the batter's box, headed onto his 16th injury, as you pointed out to me, since 2019.
I think it was Chuck Garfien that pointed that out. 16 different injuries. Now that's not necessarily on
that's
the
not
IL.
Yeah,
but he's had something to deal with 16 different times since 2019, which is just unreal. But finally puts a number to what we've been talking about the majority of our time, talking about Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah, he is not in the lineup tonight, even though it was projected that he might return, but maybe he will also be part of a Flag Day announcement by the White Sox. So there could be a lot of announcements occurring.
Tune in
tomorrow on Flag Day.
Yeah, because I've been looking. I was wondering if you had any insight into Eloy. He's just kind of
on Twitter. They said 4 to 5 days.
I hadn't even heard that. So
yeah, so I think 4 to 5 games is a better way of saying it. So I think we're at game 4 right now. So
I mean, given his track record, I would think that
they probably err on the side of caution.
I'm guessing he's going on the IL, backdated whatever that game was 5 or 6 days ago. So
All right. Well, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But overall, I mean, the White Sox have been playing well. They're off to a hot June start, 6-3. That included a series win over the New York Yankees in New York, of all things. Lucas Giolito, another possible trade candidate, great. He's pitched lights out against both the I almost said the Giants, the Yankees, and Miami Marlins this weekend. He's on quite a run. He's really had like a couple bad games all season. Both severely affected his numbers because they were so horrendous. But he's really had a nice bounce back year. What a surprise! It's the contract year. It's amazing how players can do that. But the interesting news was I really thought I was coming in today to talk about the White Sox being 7-2 or 8-1 in the month of June, but the Miami Marlins rolled into town and kind of embarrassed the Sox late in 2 games.
Yeah.
The bullpen, 2 pitchers, one, Kendall Graveman, who had pitched 19 scoreless innings, Joe Kelly, who had pitched 15 scoreless innings, both imploded in different games in each of those series. The Marlins came back late on Saturday to win 5-1, scoring 4 runs over the last couple innings. And then Sunday, Lewis Robert Jr. puts the Sox up 5-1 in the 7th. I'm already fucking popping the champagne over here. And
you have champagne. When's the last time you had champagne?
No, I'm drinking some bourbon or having a beer, whatever. And
champagne gives me a fucking headache. I hate that shit.
Thanks for calling me out on that. There's no champagne drinking.
I like the idea of you just having champagne there, right on the rocks, ready to go.
You know what?
Every White Sox victory.
I had a high life. The champagne of beers, baby. Come on.
That makes sense.
High lives over here.
I've seen you have high lives. So.
Yes. So then complete implosion. But again, bullpen problems, a bunch of guys who had been pitching well as of late, all let up runs. Kenyon Middleton, he had like 12 scoreless innings or something, hadn't let up a home run all year, lets up a home run, lets up 2. But the biggest mistake in the game, the biggest mistake for me in this game is going to come down to what I would like to call a Grifoli.
Yes, the Griffolis.
We haven't had a Grifoli in a while, but I got to ask Pedro Grifol and his coaching staff. I don't know who's in charge of defensive alignment, but why in a 2-run game where an extra base hit is going to give the team the lead, why is Yoan Moncada not playing the line at third base to prevent the double down the line?
Yeah, I've heard this brought up a lot on Sox Twitter recently. So yeah.
And what makes it even crazier as a White Sox fan is after De La Cruz clears the bases with the hit that seals the victory for the Marlins on a almost spectacular play by Moncada. He just missed it on a dive. He is then playing the line for the final out of the inning.
Yeah.
And thankfully he was there for that to keep the game within reach. The Sox would go on to lose. It just is, it's kind of inexcusable when those types of things, baseball basics, again, like just basics like that. And he has not, that the Sox are not, they're not doing a lot of like bad defensive alignments this year and things like that. Like the defense has been very much improved over past seasons, but we haven't done Grafali in a long time, and this is just a great time to bring it up because it just made zero sense why in that situation they were not protecting the lines. Another big error was done by one Tim Anderson, the third time this year this has occurred, where a ball was hit to him and he was already thinking what seemed to be thinking about making the play before he had secured the ball. And that led to a lot of runs being scored in an inning.
Started May 4th versus the Minnesota Twins. It happened again May 18th against Cleveland, at which Tom Hamilton, we made him asshole of the week for telling the world that Tim Anderson was not a good player and not a winner or whatever he said.
Yeah.
But yes, this is now the third occurrence. I think all occasions the infield is pulled in. Ball is hit directly to Tim Anderson. Like you said, he was thinking about throwing the ball before he actually got it into his glove, and it did not work. And I think they cost him all 3 games at single play. So
yeah. So, that led me to say, will the real Tim Anderson please stand up? And I think it finally happened today as a story broke.
Yes. Yeah, you actually sent me your notes, your outline earlier today, and you were going to talk about you cleverly titled it, "Will the real Tim Anderson please stand up?" And this afternoon, maybe around the time where you were sending that to me, podcast came out. I think it's called The Pivot, but Ryan Clark from ESPN, former safety for the Steelers, but really, I think I first heard him on Mike and Mike years ago. He's a really good personality, really good TV and radio guy. So yeah, I didn't know he had a podcast, but he got Tim Anderson on it to talk about some very, very personal things that we've heard about on social media. You and I have talked about a little bit with everything going on with Tim, but Tim finally gave voice to it.
Yeah, and I mean, the dick's out of the pants, the cat's out of the bag, whatever you want to say. But Tim did cheat on his wife, and it's now officially out there from Tim Anderson. And I wonder if, it was just finally too much for him to deal with. That it is. I mean, he's admitted it's affecting his game on the field.
Yeah, well, he cheated on his wife and has a child out of wedlock.
Yeah, a son.
Yeah, son out of. So that he is 1000% being the father to. He's 100% in his life. So, which I thought was really, really good to hear. I think that's part of what Tim wanted to make sure people understood, because he's seen it all play out on social media, and all the speculation, all the craziness. I think he wanted to address that to make people make sure people understood. Yeah, he made a mistake, but he's trying to do the best with that and be the father that he should be to his son out of wedlock.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It was nice to hear that it wasn't just like, hey, I'm coming clean and I got this kid over here and I got to deal with a situation in my relationship. But it seems like his wife too, Bria, is very supportive of him and this situation. He said there's been a lot of closed door therapy and things like that, which, he doesn't have to share any of this with us.
Right.
But I think for him, it is the step forward. It's the step forward that could finally allow him to be Tim Anderson again on the field, because
we're not seeing it now. Yeah.
Yeah. Because now he doesn't have to, go on Twitter, and I'm sure there's a lot of negativity on Twitter now that he's come clean too, but he doesn't have to go on there and deal with the speculation and shy away from it. It's all out there. Obviously he held on to it probably because everyone had to be comfortable with the announcement, his wife. Right. I'm not sure how much his daughters are really young, and I'm not sure how much they understand, but there's a whole dynamic there that, people never consider when you're in the spotlight. So, I feel a sense of relief for him that he was able to share this publicly. And I, again, feel a sense of relief because I feel like it could definitely lead to a more productive Tim Anderson.
Well, yeah, I mean, you hope so, as you being a White Sox fan, because I mean, we've chronicled the defensive errors that have cost you games, but he's a negative 0.3 WAR player right now. He's got an OPS plus of 70, which means he's 30% worse than average. 0 home runs. I don't even know how many RBI he has, but yeah, this is
7.
not,
I think 7.
Yeah, this is not the Tim Anderson anyone's used to.
It,
I think
yeah.
Go ahead.
I would say it's also not the Tim Anderson he wants to be with basically his last year with the White Sox because it's a club option.
For $14 million next year. He, on the same podcast, he said it'd be cool if they picked it up. It'd also be cool if they didn't, which, I mean, that's just a guy accepting his fate because he doesn't control what this end of his contract. The White Sox have control over it. So,
right.
I mean, that's the right attitude to have, but it's also the only attitude he can have towards it. So I think that might have been part of his thought process doing this podcast interview. I guess I have mixed feelings about it because you feel for the guy. You know, he's been going through hell, and we can see it playing out on the field. You know, we've seen his frustrations come out in many ways where, you know, we saw the famous lip reading where he says, "I fucking hate this place," talking to Jose Abreu when he was on first base.
I thought it was he hated the pitch clock, Smitty.
Oh yeah, it was the pitch clock.
Yeah, come on.
I guess, you know, I feel for him, but at the same time, this is all created by him. He created this situation. You know, this is not anyone else's fault. It sucks that he's going through it, but yeah, this is an adult having to live with the choices he's made. So I appreciate that he is acknowledging that and, you know, doing the right thing. But, you know, this is all situation that Tim created himself. So maybe the thought process is now that he's unburdened himself with it, with this, he can start playing better on the field. I'm not sure that I mean, in the grand scheme of things, how much can baseball really mean to him when he's dealing with all this other stuff? It's understandable that would take a back seat and that it would, you know, his performance would suffer. So it's I guess maybe he did this to give a window to the fans to understand what he's going through. But, you know, this is a production based business. It doesn't really matter if we feel for the guy or understand what's going on. He's got to perform on the field, and that is not happening.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with you. What you said, it's not like the year like when his friend got shot and he had that bad. He was dealing with that. This is him not being able to control his urges for in the simplest sense. So yeah, but you know, again, like I just go back to you wonder. Like when you haven't talked about it and it's not out in the public and you feel like you're keeping a secret and, you know, you're just like thinking about all of it while you're on the field, maybe he'll be thinking about it a little less while he's on the field now. But
yeah,
one doesn't really know. And as you said, it's a production-based business, which should lead us into the best series of June so far, the Detroit Tigers versus the Chicago White Sox at the rate.
The best season, that's one way to put it, I guess. I would say that's one of the dumbest series of the year. Certainly one of the dumbest games I've ever seen was game 2 of that series. But go ahead, pile on, do whatever you want.
No, I agree. Let's be honest. You're 100% right. It was the dumbest series of the year. We had a game 1 on wild pitches. All the runs scored on wild pitches.
You won game 1 3-0 in a shutout. Congratulations. Game 2, you won 2 wild pitches to 1 wild pitch. You had one fewer wild pitch than the Tigers did, and the White Sox win.
But we have to give I can't remember who was pitching for you, the wild pitch of the year where he strategically took out home plate umpire in hopes of maybe the wild pitch wouldn't be called safe at the plate because the ump was concussed.
I don't think that was his strategy. That was Jose Cisnero you're referring to. There's actually a little bit of information about that. The dumbest ending to any game I've ever seen, the wild pitch off the umpire's mask that led to the game-winning run. I guess it wouldn't even have been, that would have been weird enough, but to have the other two wild pitches being responsible for the other two runs scored by each team in the game is just unreal. But
I never saw any data. Is that the only game that's ever all runs have been scored on wild pitches?
I think it's happened before, believe it or not. I don't remember now. I did look that up at one point, but yeah, it wasn't the only time it's ever happened, but
it's a rare occasion.
Eric Haas, catcher for the Tigers, did shed some light after the game onto what the fuck just happened. Apparently, it could have been a pitch com issue where it could have been a pitch com issue or potentially a language barrier where
either way,
the pitch was either a slider or a sinker, and the opposite was actually a pitch, a sinker or a slider. I forget which it was, but Cisnero heard slider when he should have heard sinker. Either way, you could tell Eric Haas had no idea where that ball was going because he just completely missed the catch. It wasn't over it was high, but it wasn't like he should have had to jump up in the air to get it. He just completely missed it right into the face of umpire Corey Blazer. I just looked it up. I have not seen if Blazer's actually been back behind the plate since then. I was just on Twitter. The last remnants of Corey Blazer being mentioned on Twitter, at least, was that his ump scorecard from June 4th, which he actually did a pretty good job in that game. 94% accuracy. He only gave the White Sox a 0.16 run advantage, so you can't complain about there. So Cisnero certainly wasn't angry with the umpire. That wasn't the motivation. But yeah, it could have been either a pitchcom miscommunication or potentially a language barrier.
It really created a lot of confusion because, like, even Benetti was like, I think the Sox just won.
Yeah,
because
by the end of that, he was like, what did we just watch?
Yeah. Tim's over there helping the ump up. Moncada's touching home plate, but no one's celebrating because everyone's like, what the fuck just happened?
They're also worried about the health of the umpire.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is a noble thing, but Eric Haas seemed to be more concerned about that than actually grabbing the ball to prevent the game-winning run. He stood up and tried to help the fallen umpire, but the ball was not too far away from him. I don't know if he would have been able to scramble over there and throw it to Cisnero before Moncada scored, but it was clear that Eric Haas's priorities, for right or wrong, were with the health of the umpire. So that was another mitigating factor that led to a lot of confusion. Why it just sort of seemed like the game ended before it ended. But yeah, I mean, umpires are not the most popular people, but certainly don't wish any harm upon them or hospitalizations or long-term damage. So yeah, I guess I need to do more research to see if he's. I thought I had heard, he did have to go to the hospital, but then he was released and would have been okay. But I haven't seen him mentioned anywhere since then. So I guess we'll see.
Well, maybe the most exciting game of the series was the finale where Jake Berger, who's on pace to hit 31 homers this year, took a pitch over the wall for a quad patty slam. That's right. That was a beautiful ending.
I believe you were referring to Game 3, tie game in the 10th inning, at which the Tigers had already blown their opportunity to go ahead. Subsequently, Alex Lang loaded the bases uncharacteristically. Really looked out of control. Where he's one of the best relievers in the American League up until that point.
Yeah. You guys did not control the strike zone in that series.
Doing the opposite of controlling the strike zone against your Chicago White Sox at the worst possible moment. At which point you loaded the bases. All you needed was a single, even a pop fly, or I guess it'd have to be a little bit deeper to get the run in. There was only, I don't even know if we had one out. May have been one out. There certainly weren't two outs. The grand slam was just overkill. all you needed was the fucking fly ball. But I think I have to make Jake Berger my asshole of the week for just going off the top rope, over the top. You're gonna win one way or the other. Jesus Christ, did you have to hit the goddamn grand slam?
Yeah, you had to hit the fucking grand slam. We need some fucking runs in that series for
You needed the
Christ's
run
sake.
differential. There you go.
A run differential that mattered.
Not really, but congratulations. Yeah, Jake Berger, you're my asshole of the week.
I mean, I would make it your pitcher for loading the bases and then giving them a pitch to hit over the wall. That would should be the asshole of the week.
That's a conversation to be had. Yeah, we could.
I don't know how you make me see ball, me hit ball, ball go over wall, home run fix everything. To quote Rick Hahn last year.
That sounds like an asshole to me, but
yeah. So I mean, I don't know. He made solid contact. It went over the wall. What are you gonna do?
I wouldn't blame you for nominating Alex Lang for asshole of the week. He does have the mock turtleneck, the Dickie, so to speak, the sleeveless turtleneck that he wears. Kind of looks like an asshole out there, but as long as he's getting strikes, I don't care. But that was a horrific performance. He's had one subsequently after that as well, so I'm not sure what's going on with him. But yeah, if we went back to the old days and we could debate our assholes of the week, that would be worthwhile. But of course, mine is tongue in cheek. I won't make a full graphic for Jake Berger being an asshole, but I thought it was too much. It's too much for me to handle. I couldn't believe it.
One thing we know it did do is it sent your Tigers into a complete tailspin to start off the month. And just think, if we had this podcast last night before I realized Charlie had a baseball game, you would have been maybe in a little different story, but we held on for a day and we got some more news.
Well, I do want to point out to you before we move on that it's actually some shit I couldn't make up. How often your White Sox have not had to face the best players in your opponent's lineups over the last few weeks. That includes my Tigers, who on the last podcast, we had just learned that not only Eduardo Rodriguez, our best pitcher and potentially the best pitcher in the American League at that point, our by far our best and most productive hitter, Riley Green, was also going on the IL. But beyond that, your White Sox benefited even this week from the absence of Aaron Judge, potentially.
Oh yeah, because the Yankees are a complete shit lineup.
The reigning MVP, they missed their by far their MVP.
Okay.
To a ridiculous situation where in Los Angeles, where he broke through the fence. You saw the play, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Where he actually broke through. It looked like he broke through a gate, and the gate just kind of came open, like the latch came open.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
It was revealed later that was not the case. It was literally the fence coming apart at a joint. Aaron Judge hit it so hard that he went right through it, which is ironic considering the Dodgers just finished a $100 million renovation to Dodger Stadium, but somehow they couldn't make a fence that someone couldn't break through. Mind you, Aaron Judge is easily the largest outfielder that will ever hit that fence, most likely. So that maybe they couldn't calculate the force with which he would crash into it. But he broke he's got a toe contusion, ligament strain, not necessarily because of that fence, but because there's a concrete slab that the fence rests on that is actually on the field. That's what he busted his foot up on. They have now installed padding there. When you look at it now, it's like, how could they have this set up like that? It's dangerous as fuck, especially after spending $100 million renovating the stadium. But it doesn't stop there. That's why this is some shit I couldn't make up. We already talked about previously how the Indians were missing not only Josh Naylor for
are you talking about injury. The Guardians?
I'm sorry, the Guardians, yes. They were also missing Jose Ramirez, who was on bereavement of all things while they were in Chicago.
Naylor played in the series. He
played one game. I thought he played one game finally.
No, he played 2 games.
Regardless, their best player was not in it, just like this narrative that I'm spinning. Every team's best player is not playing against your White Sox over the last month.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. I
You
guess
can,
when the
you-
Sox went 7-22, it was because their best players were out of the lineup due to injury.
well,
So
there you go. But I'm glad you had your rebuttal there. But I could also throw in, of course, the Twins who were missing both Byron Buxton and
when aren't they?
well, that's the other best rebuttals. When aren't they out of the lineup? But I just thought that was some interesting shit he couldn't make up.
Oh God, it's titillizing.
Well, as soon as you do face a team at full strength, you lose to the Marlins of all. So I don't know. I'll keep an eye on that going forward. So
Yeah, keep an eye on that. Yeah,
yeah, now that I know it irks you, I will definitely keep an eye on it. So this will
yeah,
be fun. This will be fun to follow. Certainly on
yeah.
social media.
What's do you want to talk about the Tigers now and their one win in
you,
June
you want
or
you
no?
want to change the subject very quickly? I see. Let me get a drink of water here. Let me
All
get
right.
started. I'm calling this the June of doom for the Detroit Tigers, as we easily predicted going into this after this previous episode, losing not only Eduardo Rodriguez but also Riley Green. The Tigers lost 9 games in a row, not surprisingly. I guess I wouldn't have predicted they were going to lose 9 in a row. They did finally win a game last night in walk-off fashion, finally, against all teams. The Atlanta Braves, probably the best team they played in this stretch. They somehow found a way to come back in the 9th. Actually, really encouraging signs from Spencer Torkelson hitting a 440-foot blast to left center. He had the game-winning. They call it a single, but it was the infield and outfielders were all pulled in extra innings with runners in scoring position. He just blooped actually kind of a deep fly ball, but it was cinched once he hit the ball in the air that the Tigers were going to actually win. But finally, something to cheer about. That was June 12th was the first time I could cheer for anything going on with the Tigers in the month of June. So that is why I'm definitely calling that the June of doom. That included, of course, your series against the White Sox. One of the weirdest series I've ever seen. Yeah, they played competitively in Philadelphia, but of course, not good enough. They made history when they lost a game 1-0 to Philadelphia. The only run being scored was on the first pitch of the game to Kyle Schwarber, or first pitch to the Tigers to Kyle Schwarber. So that was a remarkable way to lose a game. They found all sorts of ways. Right now, they're in a rain delay, so I'm not sure how they're gonna fare against the Braves this evening, but it's at least good to have a win under our belt for once in this month. Pretty amazing. Things have just fallen apart after their first winning month in over a year. I think it was a year and a half. This past month, they actually went 16-11 in the month of May, and now to be guaranteed a losing month essentially already 12 days in, it's unbelievable. So other news with the Tigers, unfortunately, having to do with other very depressing things, and also kind of sheds light on why we're in the dire situation we are, is Al Avila actually went on a podcast, the Foul Territory podcast, which I'm assuming you're aware of, hosted by one AJ Przinsky,
Yes.
to talk about what went wrong with the Tigers in his 7-year reign of terror. And it really didn't make me feel any better about the situation, about his psyche, his acumen, the way he views things. He admitted to mistakes, but I feel like he still really doesn't get it, really doesn't understand what happened to him and the organization he was running. He was going over the trades he had made, especially during the rebuilding process, where the critical moments where they traded away the biggest assets they had, to hopefully get prospects that would pan out. And his barometer of success was whether any of those prospects he traded for were actually in the major leagues at this point. And that is an incredibly low bar to set. He He mentioned Reese Olson being the major asset acquired in the Daniel Norris trade, which is interesting that he actually just finally made the major leagues. He's actually looked really good this past in his two appearances. But Alex Lang, the aforementioned, being part of the Castellanos deal. The final one he mentions was getting Joey Wentz for Shane Green, which Joey Wentz might be the worst pitcher in the American League. So I don't know how you hang your head on that. He brought up the Justin Verlander trade, in which we received Franklin Perez. Ever hear of him? Ooh. Yeah. Daz Cameron.
Oh, yeah, Daz Cameron.
Yeah. He's no longer with the organization. And Jake Rogers, who is a backup catcher with the Tigers.
Not bad.
He's not great. He's batting about 150 right now.
I mean, that's
6 or 7 home runs, but
Mendoza.
So Al basically defended his record based on the few assets he received that are actually in the majors, and it's just a pathetic return. So it makes me think he still doesn't understand what he did and how he fucked it up. It's making me think, and this is going to kind of bleed over into football a bit, but for anyone in the state of Michigan who's a Detroit sports fan, you debate. It's never been a debate who the worst general manager in Detroit sports history was. It's Matt Millen, but I think for the pathetic Detroit Lions, but I think Al Avila is now giving a run for his money, as we've seen and are seeing what a enormous hole he has dug for the organization, and how long it's going to take, even if Scott Harris is potentially the most competent and one of the best general managers in history, it's going to take him years to dig out of the situation the Tigers are in. We are seeing that firsthand right now. I think Al is a very nice man. I don't bear him any ill will, but I don't really ever want to see or hear from him ever again, especially when his comments are so clueless and show that he just still doesn't understand what he has done to a proud organization, one that I and millions of others follow breathlessly. It has just completely run into the ground, potentially for years to come.
Was there any reaction by the AJ or anyone else on the podcast?
I didn't. I refused to listen to it. I just read the highlights and just kind of went over it. So I didn't really want to hear it. I'm sure they were more than kind. They don't have the same vitriol or interest that I do.
It would have been funny though. Someone was. Yeah, it would have been funny if someone was like, well, I mean,
what
Jake
the fuck Rogers, are you talking about?
Yeah, Jake Rogers is batting 150 like you just did to me, and then and who was that Wentz may be the worst pitcher in the AL, but okay, Al.
The idea that he's even in the major leagues right now is testimony to how bad the Tigers rotation is,
right?
Mainly because of injury, of course, but
true.
That's another thing you could blame in ways on Al Avila for being completely oblivious to how potential injuries can happen to the pitching staff, how a pitcher's mechanics influence the likelihood of injury down the road. And there are lots of red flags raised with Casey Mize and his delivery. Same with Michael Fulmer, who actually, both of which have now had Tommy John surgery. So, injury is impossible to predict, but there are warning signs, and it seems like Al is completely oblivious to all of them, and being oblivious to everything, which it's just a frustrating situation. It's time for Al to turn the page, recede from public light, enjoy his retirement, enjoy his time. I believe he lives in Florida. He doesn't really have any reason to go on baseball podcasts anymore and infuriate Tigers fans like myself. With that, I need to move on from the Tigers for now, unless you had anything else you wanted to say about our dire state.
No, I'm trying to think about how desperate that podcast was for a guest to have Al Avila.
Have you listened to the Foul Territory podcast yet?
No, I know about it. I've read about some episodes. I should listen to it because it sounds like they do a lot of fun stuff on there. So
I thought you'd be into it just because of AJ more than anything, but he's an entertaining personality for one thing. But they've had some big names in shit. Yeah, they've had some big names on there, so they've made some news in their short time being a podcast. So, but I want to move along. I'm going to move over to my fucking A's, the hottest team in baseball. Ironically enough,
unbelievable.
A's.
They've caught the Kansas City Royals for wins.
6-game winning streak, the last of which was against the AL leading Tampa Bay Rays, believe it or not. Yeah, it's unreal. They don't have the worst record. Well, they're tied for the worst record in baseball now, but that's the 6-game winning streak equals the 6 games per month they were winning to that point. It's just unreal, like what they've been doing. The irony that this is happening at this point is crazy, because A's fans were so fed up with the performance of the team and the likely move to Las Vegas that fans have organized their own promotion tonight of all nights, June 13th. They're calling it the reverse boycott night, where fans are encouraged to show up to the game. But part of this promotion set up by the fans included a GoFundMe page in an effort to purchase 5,000 t-shirts, green t-shirts that say "sell" across the front in bold white letters, mocking the ownership, refusing to let their team go without a fight, encouraging their owner John Fisher to sell the team rather than move them to Las Vegas potentially, which there's more on that. But the GoFundMe's goal was to raise $25,000 to purchase 5,000 of these t-shirts to give away before tonight's game. It was so successful, they're actually giving away 7,000 t-shirts was the last number I saw. As fans really engaged in this. It's really cool how they've set it up. I followed some of the fans on social media. They've set up different tables in the parking lots and different areas. Like there's a BART stop right outside of the Coliseum. There's a bridge that goes right to the Coliseum there. It's actually a really cool setup. They've got a table there where fans are picking up t-shirts. There's different tables. There's maps been released where people can find the different tables on the internet. So I've seen some footage earlier today where people are already in the parking lots getting their free "sell" t-shirts, the fan promotion. The irony is there is another actually team endorsed promotion going on tonight. Swim team night. Have you ever heard of swim team night?
No, not even the White Sox have done that one.
I've never heard of that. They are giving away a beach towel, an A's themed beach towel, which sounds kind of nice. But
wouldn't it just be beach towel night?
I don't know why swim teams. Again, maybe that's a Bay Area thing that I'm unaware of.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't think that's why people are showing up in droves.
Well, they're going to finally run out of a promotion, though.
The A's have been drawing about 5,000 people a night. In fact, last night the attendance was just below 5,000. Last I saw, there were going to be at least 30,000 people in the Coliseum tonight, and I think that is all because of this reverse boycott promotion that the fans set up. This has nothing to do with swim team night or the beach towel giveaway. Might have a little bit to do with the performance of the team, just like we spoke of. They're actually the hottest team in baseball. So the irony is these disgruntled fans are actually going to get to see an interesting product on the field, hopefully tonight. So I feel like I've said over and over again, I feel for the A's fans having to go through this. I can't imagine what it would be like if the Tigers were in this situation trying to leave for Vegas. How fucking angry I'd be. I love that they are trying to take things in their own hands, showing their displeasure in every way they can, putting it right in the face of the organization and the ownership. I'd like to see if John Fisher is actually there tonight. I'm sure he is not. But it'd be great to see if the fans can actually engage with him and get a dialogue going of some sort for him to explain himself, why he's turned his back on Oakland, and treated the fans like shit this whole time. So kudos to A's fans. You guys are in an impossible situation. Love how you're handling it there. I'm wondering if this might lead to other kind of protest nights. I hope it does. I hope, in a way, I hope things escalate into more giveaways, more signs of displeasure that the ownership cannot ignore as they continue to try to move to Las Vegas, where there's actually some more news on that. The Nevada legislature is meeting, I believe, as we speak. I believe this is the fourth day of a special session called to hear hearings to potentially pass a bill to fund this new stadium in Las Vegas for billionaire John Fisher. He wants now $380 million of Nevada taxpayer money to help fund his stadium, to which a special hearing has been called. President Kaval, it's Kaval, has been questioned directly. Several situations where he was given basically questions that are yes/no answers, to which he was not able to provide an answer. The legislature is really kind of raking him over the coals, and he has not performed at all. And that has led to a longer than usual special session. I thought it started last Wednesday. It was potentially going to be done that day, but it dragged into Thursday. It then took a 3-day weekend, came back Monday. It was not resolved yesterday. Not resolved as of this evening, Tuesday night. This, mind you, every day of a special session of the Nevada legislature cost taxpayers $250,000. So this circus is just dragging on and on. And I don't know where this goes. I don't see how it's a good sign that this session is lasting this long in multiple days. If this fails, I'm not sure what happens to this whole stadium plan. So there's going to be a lot of news, beyond just how this fan revolt, the reverse boycott works tonight, but also with what the fuck's going on with the Nevada legislature. Excuse me. So
whoa.
We will see how this all pans out. There's going to be lots of A's news going forward.
Oh, I can't wait.
But beyond that, we do have a little A's news, as an A has been nominated for the first time in our Badass of the Week history, short Badass of the Week history.
Yeah, would you like me to go over the numbers, or you got them there?
I would like you to go over the numbers, please.
All right. So, as Smitty mentioned, Jace Peterson, never heard of him, third baseman for the Oakland Athletics, is a nominee for Badass of the Week with 2 homers, 6 runs, 7 RBIs, a 1370 OPS, and 2 stolen bases.
I think that's rather impressive. I think those are numbers. We've seen similar numbers, not usually with the stolen bases. He actually had a stolen base 8 days ago that didn't get counted, so it would have been three stolen bases. But those are the rules we've set up. We can only go over the last 7 days. So I was more impressed that an Oakland A actually got nominated for a Badass of the Week than anything. So I was happy to put somebody, even someone as innocuous as Jace Peterson on the board.
Jace Peterson here. Speaking of a very similar name, one Jacques Pedersen.
Yeah, no relation.
Has been nominated with 3 home runs, 8 runs, 8 RBIs, and a 1470 OPS. Pretty fucking impressive.
That included 4 RBI, 4 hits, performance 2 home run performance against the Cubs on Sunday. So
yeah, I think that was 101 in the splash hit.
Oh yeah, it would have been.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
As usual, Luis Robert Jr. has been nominated with 2 home runs, 5 runs, 4 RBI, 1118 OPS, and 1 stolen base. That seems paltry compared to these other guys. Terrible, yeah. Luis. You need to do better.
He got I think that's his 4th nomination. So yeah. It's worthy of throwing in there, but I don't think he's going to win it this week.
Now I threw a name into the hat who we talked about earlier, and it was almost for individual game performance in Jake Berger for the walk-off grand salami against the Tigers.
That earned him my asshole of the week nomination earlier in the
Yes.
show. So
Bad asshole of the week.
bad
Badass of the week.
I kind of like that. Yeah, new word. Bad asshole of the week.
His other numbers are not as impressive as everyone else. Over the last week, it's 2 homers, 7 RBIs, which 4 of those would have been
in one swing of the bat.
One swing of the bat. Moving on to pitchers, we have Kyle Hendricks for his no through 7 2/3. 8 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 base on ball, and 0 runs. And then another trade candidate, Lucas Giolito, 13 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 15 Ks, 6 hits, and 4 walks over 2 games over New York and Miami. So, whew, it's a tough one.
Well, I think it's, at least for batters, we can narrow that down to Jock Peterson. I think wins that based on his 1470 OPS and all the home runs and RBI. That's going to be my pick for batters, at least.
I can't argue.
All right. So then it comes down to pitchers. I think we got to give the nod to Giolito for the 2 starts. Impressive numbers over those 2 starts.
Yeah, that included the terrible Yankee team because 1 player was missing. So we're still going to give it to him, everyone, even though 1 player was missing from the lineup.
Keep saying 1 player. He's the fucking reigning MVP, by far the catalyst of their entire offense.
I will keep saying 1 player because I'm not allowed to complain when the Sox have 4 players injured.
Who says you're not allowed to complain?
Yeah, someone on the other end of this podcast.
What the fuck just happened there? Whoever stopped you from complaining? My God, we wouldn't have a podcast if you were refused to complain. My God.
So, injuries. It happens.
Frame this however you want. Yeah, congrats. So,
yeah,
who's your nomination? Let's go here.
Lucas Giolito.
For pitchers.
Oh no, everyone. I think we just go with Jock Peterson for the win.
Okay, we could have avoided all this acrimony if you weren't such a child, because I also would root for Jock Peterson to be our badass of the week.
There you go. I'm the child. Interesting.
All right. Well, I think with that we better wrap this up. So, unless you had anything else or anything we forgot.
No, we've been pretty good lately.
Okay.
Remember how last season there'd always be like a shit Pete forgot at almost every fucking episode?
I think you're taking good notes. You're sending me your outlines before the show. You're getting all professional over there.
I know. I don't know if I like it. Maybe I go back to a little more gunslinging, a little more Old West style. Play it off the cuff.
Please do not.
Remember we should share this. I used to try to, I wanted to like sort of get Smitty's raw reaction on the air sometimes. And I would just be like, I would send an ambiguous, and a a strange White Sox fact. And then he'd reply back, okay, well, I don't know how I can prepare for that. Why don't you just tell me what you're going to say? I always used to.
I don't know why you're doing a tease via text. Like,
I know.
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to get you excited for the show.
Yeah, don't worry about that. that might be impossible at this point. So,
yes.
Let me please wrap this up. Thank you.
Please wrap this up.
Episode 127 of In the Hole. I'll wrap up this episode 29 of Sox Type Thing. You can catch us on social media, Twitter at Sox Type Thing over there, or at Major League A-Holes. You can catch us on YouTube. You can catch us on the web at soxtypething.com or majorleagueaholes.com. And you can catch this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Peace.
Wordhole Media.